Now it's time to take a look at softboxes. And softboxes are the modifier that are most commonly used by portrait photographers. But as with many modifiers, they come in all different shapes and all different sizes. So how do you choose what's right for you? Probably a good starter softbox that many portrait photographers have is the one sitting on the table right behind me. This is a 3-foot octabox, and obviously called an octabox because of its shape. What's nice about this 3-foot octabox is if you are shooting in a smaller space, having something like a 5-foot octabox when you have, say, 7.5, 8-foot ceilings is going to be pretty hard to manage. But with a 3-foot octabox, you're still going to get nice soft light, but a little bit more flexibility to move it around in a small space. But the trade-off is that 5-foot octabox is going to give you big, beautiful, soft light when photographing groups of people or full-length shots. So you've got to kind of figure out how much space you have to work in, as well as how much of an area do you need to light and how many people are you illuminating. I can, in fact, light someone full length with a 3-foot octabox. But if I want really soft light on a bigger area, then I probably have to go with a 5-foot. So what subject matter are you regularly shooting? So as you can see here, there are different shapes. We have an octabox, we have rectangles, and they also make squares. So what size and what shape is right for you? One of the biggest differences between the octabox and the squares and the rectangles is, of course, the catch light. So the shape of the highlight in the eyes. Some people like going with the rectangular shape because it looks more like a window. And so if they're trying to emulate window light, it can actually look like a window that the subject's being illuminated by. But if you perhaps like circles in the eyes to emulate the shape of the sun or to mimic the shape of the pupil, then maybe an octabox is going to be better. For the most part, I don't honestly think in your work it's going to make a huge difference. If I need to feather the light off the background and I need a little bit more control, sometimes having a rectangular softbox allows me to do that. Because when I have the big octagon or the big octabox, it's a little harder because it's throwing light everywhere more evenly. And I can kind of use the edge of the rectangular softbox. So it depends on what you need. I tend more often to work with the octaboxes. When I'm shooting groups, 5-foot octa is great. If I'm shooting in a more confined space, 3-foot octa. And of course, there's everything in between. 2-foot octa, 3-foot octa, 5-foot octa, 7-foot octa. And the one behind me is a 3-by-4-foot rectangular softbox. The next one up that sometimes I use when I need a bit larger light source is a 4-by-6. But here is a downside of using these. If you go for really big softboxes, they're very hard to set up, I find many of them, and they're going to be difficult in small spaces. So remember the rule, the larger the light source is relative to the subject, the softer the light. So I can do two things if I want soft light. I can go with a bigger softbox like you see here and go bigger, or if I have a smaller softbox, I can simply bring it closer. But if I bring it closer and I'm shooting a group of people, then the light won't be even. So these are the things that you're always balancing in your mind. Now let me tell you a little bit about how these softboxes work. And all of these are going to work pretty similar. When you have a softbox, what's happening is it's giving you the softest light possible. So if you're looking for a soft modifier, softboxes are definitely the way to go. Now, your strobe is a hard light. It's a small light source. But what happens is it hits the diffusion here in the softbox and it spreads out. The diffusion not only gives you a larger light source, so much larger than the head of the strobe, but also that diffusion cuts down on contrast. The highlights won't be as bright, they won't be as specular, there won't be as much texture. But all of the good softboxes have an extra piece of diffusion in them. So if you look inside this softbox, you have something called an inner baffle or inner piece of diffusion here. And the reason that's good is it helps cut down on the hot spot in your softbox, and it makes sure that you're using all of the softbox, meaning you're giving yourself the softest light possible. Without the inner diffusion, what happens is the light will just hit the center of the diffusion in the front. And it's really only using a small part of the entire softbox. So you're not creating a larger light source. It's actually going to be softer, but it's kind of small. So the inner diffusion, what happens is the light hits that inner baffle, spreads out, and then that additionally spread out light hits the front diffusion. It fills it even more, and it makes it softer twice. So that inner diffusion is actually really important to giving you that really soft look that you get from a softbox. And the other reason I like softboxes in general is control. If you look at the softbox here, the fact that it has these enclosed sides, it allows me to have more control so the light isn't spreading everywhere like you get often with an umbrella. And then if I want to feather off the background, I can block the light by changing the angle. So I find softboxes give me a lot of control. So when you are choosing a softbox or the softbox right for you, you need to consider the size of the space you're in, the shape of the catch light, how many people you are lighting at once. If you need to light from head to toe, those are all going to be considerations. I think softboxes are going to be a great choice if you're shooting headshots, if you're shooting senior portraits, when you're photographing small families. And it's nice because it's one of those light modifiers that is really a staple of a portrait photographer's toolkit. We've talked about all different types of modifiers, umbrellas and beauty dishes and softboxes, and the ones that I've been showing here have all been for studio strobes. But keep in mind, this applies no matter what light source you're using, including speed lights. Now, if you check out the gear guide, I show you the equivalent modifiers. So what softboxes are made for speed lights, what beauty dishes are made for speed lights, what umbrellas are made for speed lights. So you will be able to translate all of this no matter what studio lighting source you're using.